From the advertising media capital of the world, New Milford, Connecticut. Wherever that is. This is Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson.
All right, it's another episode of Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson. Thanks to my buddy Jim McCarthy from Jim McCarthy Voiceovers for the fancy intro. As you can tell, for those of you that are watching on video right now, I am out on location and I had to put pants on and get a haircut, and I'm very uncomfortable. I love doing these things from my basement, mostly pantsless. But I got a text message from an old friend in my automotive dealership days. And he convinced me to come to his office, which I am regretting right now because there's lights here and I'm sweaty and it's terrible. But I'm glad I came out here because I am sitting in their office and I came completely unprepared, which is against my, generally against my religion, is to come unprepared. But I thought it'd be a good chance to learn a lot about their business. So let me look at my phone here all right, yes, we are at AMQconnect is where we're at. And I'm with James, Dylan, and Nick. And here's the research I did, James. AMQconnect, creating the most advanced customer engagement pod. What's up, guys? Nice to meet you.
What's up, Matt?
James, Dylan, Nick. James, we spent time together back in the dealership tier 3 brick and mortar days.
Yep.
Probably haven't talked to you in around 6 years or so, and you reach out and you started this company, AMQconnect, which is just a bunch of letters that really don't mean a lot to me. So could you explain, first of all, what does AMQ even stand for? It's an acronym, I assume,
Can't
right?
tell you. That's top secret stuff.
Okay, well, I'm glad I came out for that.
I think the first thing we learned is create a name that nobody knows or understands, and then they're forced to ask you what it means.
Yeah.
And then we get to have this conversation.
And then here we are having this conversation. So I come into your office, you've got all these great displays around. You showed me around before we started recording, all these great digital displays, and they look like they belong in showrooms of high-end car dealerships is my initial opinion. So
It's a pretty good assessment out of the gate.
yeah, thank you. I'm very perceptive.
And and I think at an arm's length away, you might just say, hey, that's a fancy TV or a fancy digital display.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And I guess at a surface level or from 25 feet away, that's probably what it looks like. And it does all of that cool stuff. But beyond that it's an engagement pod, as we call it. And the idea is to provide a vehicle between the salesperson, the customer, and that car buying process. And so beyond static content or rolling footage or things of that nature, it provides interactive functionality. So our goal was to take every available resource that a customer has outside of the dealership from the comfort of their home via internet, phone, etc., bring that into the dealership and give the customer and the salesperson those same resources in an interactive type way.
So you're home shopping and you've got access to the website and access to the tier 1 website and the car builder and all that fancy stuff. And then you walk in the showroom and it's like going back in time, analog. The dude shakes your hand and starts talking to you, and you have no tech, no point of reference, none of that information you have when you're shopping at home.
In fact, you have nothing. You'd be better off going back 10 years and having at least a paper brochure with specs or colors and model selections that you can at least point and refer to. The strange thing is dealerships and manufacturers have eliminated those resources, but they haven't brought anything in to fill the gap. And, we were talking about this the other day. You walk into a McDonald's and there's more tech available to order a Big Mac and see the ingredients than there is if you were to walk into a Mercedes-Benz store, for instance, to buy a $100,000 car. There is nothing available.
You walk in McDonald's and they've got the new displays, and you can order your own meal and you can do the whole thing, and they bring it out to you. And then you go to the Mercedes-Benz store and you get, some guy named Bob who just took all his Mercedes tests online, and he, is explaining it to you, but there's no visual, point of reference to go with what he's saying. All right. So not being mean to dealers. We all love auto dealers, right? the auto industry sometimes is a little bit behind the times when it comes to tech, when it comes to layout of the showroom, or it comes to just general design like of a showroom. So you walk into a new dealership, let's say a Honda dealership, a new Mercedes dealership, and this is meant to replace that wall full of all the brochures that are all like lined up, and the one car you want, the brochure is missing. Like this gets rid of all that. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. So I think not only does it eliminate that and provides as a replacement for that, it provides as a resource between, as you mentioned, you have the salesperson, Bob, who just took his tests and he's supposed to remember all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's that resource that replaces that big wall of analog content and fills in all the gaps in between. Again, especially as tech has advanced in the cars themselves, whether it be displays, audio interfaces, or now with EV cars, there is so much information and product knowledge to retain. It's just not feasible for one salesperson to remember every single point. And then you get that one customer that walks in that asks that very obscure question.
Yeah.
And without that resource available, you're starting to lose that trust and that confidence that you need from that customer to get closer to the sale.
Customers are coming in more educated than ever now too, right? They're showing
100%.
up, having done all the research themselves, having read everything about, especially EVs, read everything about EVs. So when they come in and like you said, you get to a salesperson, that can erode the trust of that person. Well, this person should know more than I know. But if that data, that information is available on the screen, then it helps to reiterate the fact that, okay, this guy does know what he's talking about. And here it is in print and in graphics. So, okay, so what kind of information are on these screens and where do they go? Like how can dealers utilize them? What's the unique selling proposition? Like why do you need this? Like why does a dealer need it? Who's listening right now? You got two other guys here. I assume you pay them.
So Dylan is actually our CCO. He handles all of the customer interface or the customer UI on all of the pods, and he really designs what that interaction is going to look like.
Dylan, it's 107 degrees outside and you're wearing a sweater, but that's not a big deal.
It's a cardigan.
It's very cool in here, and it is a cardigan.
Sorry. So yes, what does it look like?
But to start, we live in a world of tech. Everything you do is on your phone. I grew up with an iPad in my hand. And we're in this world of these luxury dealerships are pushing a $100,000, $150,000 product of uber luxury, touch screens, digital displays, and this whole thing. And you walk in their showroom and you have nothing. You have a random person trying to reiterate or remember certain information. So the biggest thing and the most important thing in my job is making a seamless transition from an iPhone in your digital life into the car dealership. So when we do a lot of our testing, it's how do we make it as user-friendly as possible? So we have a lot of people come in and they'll do a swiping motion or a scrolling motion, and you're trying to hit all these different age demographics from the older generation who hasn't grown up in tech and the newer generation who grew up in tech, and put it all into one seamless sort of device that can help them buy a car, learn more about the car without any sort of stumbles or gaps from where they once were.
Can a dealer customize the functionality of like how it operates, what buttons they can push? Because you just said something that was resonating, which was sometimes depending on the demographic, whether it's the age or whatever it is, they may be more or less tech savvy. I think of my father trying to, navigate whatever on his iPhone, exactly, as opposed to, a friend who may be in the same age group as me, who may be able to get things done quicker. Like, right. How do you make sure, you got to make sure everybody can use it, right?
And to answer that question, yes, it's 100% customizable to you. I remember we did a delivery to an Audi store in Fairfield where we sat there for probably an hour or so with the GM, customizing his interface the way he saw fit. He wanted used cars here. He wanted this button there. He wanted this button to be linked to a certain thing. So I think that's the best thing about what we do is it's really one-off for each store. Whether you want a button to go here or there, it's 100% customizable in a seamless fashion. And even if it's not something you think of on your delivery day, we're one button away and within 30 minutes, it's immediately up to date. And I think that's the best thing about what we're doing, because I remember a few months ago, we were doing these 6-foot paper pull-up banners. One, your lead time is 3 to 4 days if you're being very quick, and it can't be updated. So say you want to run a special for the weekend. Okay, you throw it up Friday, you want to pull it Monday, you can do that as easily as possible. You can't do that with a pull-up banner. You can't do it with paper. And it's a waste of money for dealers when they do all these banners because it takes up space. It creates a cluttered feel in the showroom. And what do you do when you're done? Throw them away, you hide them in a closet. But with the pod, you can take all of that content and digitize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. What about the argument? Like, I'm a dealer. I, go to exhausting lengths to hire salespeople and train salespeople, and, good salespeople are at a premium, right? Like, what do I need to have an interactive brochure for when I'm paying to hire and train? Like, a salesperson should be able to answer all the questions that the person is consulting the screen for, right? Like how does this replace so you got a salesperson? Isn't that what their job is?
So I think one of the common things we hear or questions we get asked is this the first step in replacing the salesperson, right?
Yeah.
Is this we've all heard.
A lot of salespeople probably ask that question.
So we've all heard of a silent salesperson, right? So it's some form of static something that will take place if a salesperson's not there or not available, often referred to for after hours, for instance. You have a car on display, you have some sort of information, point of sale that doesn't lose that customer. If salespeople were as talented, and again, this is not a knock on salespeople,
Right.
but if they were as talented and as customer friendly and product knowledge, retention as we hope they were, they would have 100% closing ratio, right?
Yeah.
The amount of customers that walk into a dealership and walk out without buying a car is astronomical. I think most people know that number. That number is somewhere between 75 and 80% leave the dealership and do not buy a car. And that's not to say you have a bad salesperson. And that's not to say, and frankly, it very rarely has to do with price. It more has to do with that process from when they walked in the door, the information they received, or the information they didn't receive that caused them to leave. So this doesn't have to be looked at as a replacement for a salesperson. This doesn't have to be looked at as anything more than a tool that bridges that gap between the salesperson and the customer when they walk in the door. Because customers walk in on the defense, right? They don't trust salespeople. I was a salesperson forever. I guess you could argue that I'm still a salesperson now. And people that are about to spend their money have their guard up against someone who's about to take their money.
Sure.
And if we can provide some sort of vehicle between the two of them that begins to build that trust, we are that much closer to the sale. So you brought up, product knowledge. As a salesperson, I could verbally tell you something, and it may be 100% factual, but there's going to be a level of doubt until you're able to verify it. And as a dealership, you have two choices. That customer can leave and go home and verify it and call their friend or go to the next dealership or whatever their level of verification is. Or we can provide tools right in their showroom that allows that verification process very comfortably and unassuming. So if I'm telling you something that you can visually read right next to me through an interactive interface, we are 10 steps closer to that level of trust we need to get you to write a check.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Because you know, someone who's trying to sell you a high ticket item could just tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Right. The towing capacity. Is towing capacity until my boat's 8,000 pounds. Yeah, sure. 8,000
Sure, go
pounds.
for it.
Well, it says right here on the screen, it's, 7,500 pounds. Salesperson. I don't want it to sound like we're picking on salespeople, but yeah, it's in writing, right? It's got that, there's a trust factor to it. It's on the screen. It's in writing. There's a picture next to it. The guy said it. It's echoed here next to me. It's got that, it's got a feeling of building trust, I believe.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's important to consider is people receive information differently.
Sure.
So you may leave a dealership as a consumer, not buy a car, and the only thing you remember is what was verbally told to you. Or you may leave a dealership and the only thing you remember is what you read on paper.
Yeah.
Or saw with your eyes, et cetera. So people receive information differently, and we can't rely on, let's say the salesperson does a perfect job. Let's say he remembers everything he was supposed to remember, got all the facts straight, but what if the customer doesn't receive information well? I mean, look, billboards are around for a reason because there's something to be said for a customer reading a physical message. Maybe there's a graphical element to it. Maybe there's something that catches their eye. Maybe it's something as simple as the color of a text or an icon next to it that causes them to remember it and retain the information. And Bob telling me that my EV charges in 2.5 hours, maybe that just didn't do it for me. So I think it's important to have these resources available, and they're just not.
I feel very uncool around you guys. None of you are wearing socks, and I'm wearing socks. Is that
little socks?
Is that a thing? Oh, they're like no-shows?
I actually normally don't wear shoes. I put my shoes
disgusting.
on for you.
Thank you.
I normally just wear socks.
I'm not a big feet person, so.
Yeah, I know. I hear toe infections are nasty.
No, thank you. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies. The displays have a very premium feel to them. Is this the kind of thing that you guys see or are seeing in high-end dealerships? Are they going in all types of manufacturers, or is it just going to dealers that, have that like premium tech feel to it? Mercedes, I know I've seen Mercedes and Audi on some of the displays here in your office.
Yeah, so I think, our target market is really every brand. I don't think the customer need is any different from somebody buying a Honda or a Subaru to buying an Audi or Mercedes. Maybe their level of expectation is a little bit different. If you walk into a Mercedes, Audi, Land Rover dealership, you expect these types of tools available to you.
Yeah.
When you walk into a Honda, a Subaru, a Chrysler store, they are needed just as much. Maybe the consumer doesn't have that same level of expectation. So that's why you'll see a lot of that. And some of the first stores we were in were Porsche, BMW, Audi, Mercedes. But we referenced McDonald's earlier. You're buying a $5 Big Mac or however much a Big Mac costs now.
They're more than $5 now, I think.
But your interface and technology available to you doesn't change because you're buying a fast food item versus buying a steak.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a quick break and come right back. Just kidding. I don't have any sponsors. That'd be funny, though.
I thought you'd hit with somebody.
I don't have any sponsors, so I guess we'll just keep going. Can it be customized in terms of, let's say I'm a dealer, I produce my own video, I produce my own TV commercials, or we make content ourselves. Can we repurpose that content and use it on the displays?
Yeah, 100%. So we had a store in Michigan that did a informative I-4 walk-around video. It was about 3.5 minutes long. And she asked if they could put it up on their pod for their customers. And we said, of course they can. And we had another store that does little tidbits. It was the Audi store as well. And they would like to do a video catalog if a salesperson, like we keep talking about, in fact, is busy. Say, hey, I want to learn more about your new RS3 and I want to learn about the colors. They make a video for that, and we will create a separate module for them where it will have a video catalog for all the information they would like, times, and things of that nature. And it can be customized to what they want and their specifications.
Is it being used for sales applications mostly, or also for fixed ops for service?
Yeah, so the pod itself is obviously relatively universal. It can go anywhere within the dealership. And I talked about it bridging the gap between the salesperson and the customer. It also bridges the gap between sales and service, because there's almost this aura of separation in the dealership, right? You have the front end and the back end, and sales operates independent from service. So what the pod does is it provides service information in a sales environment. So for example, you can have a pod that is located in a sales department feeding service information to sales customers, and vice versa. You can have a pod in a service department that's not only reinforcing service information, but feeding sales information to those prospective service customers.
Where are people putting these in their showroom? Like, I'm thinking of back in my dealer days, I was in a Nissan group, and we'd walk in, and right there on the left was the wall that had like the brochures and the paint samples and the, like the old TV screen. Like, is that where these things are going? Or behind the service department, there's always a bunch of handwritten notes or some the labor rates. Like, where are these things going in stores?
Yeah, so depending on the department, as you mentioned, sales, we've seen them everywhere. Front reception desk, some dealerships. And again, not only is the pod customizable to the dealership, the brand, et cetera, the pod location in the dealership can also be adjusted according with the dealership's selling style, sales process, et cetera. So for example, some stores want it right at reception. You walk in, it's right there. A receptionist greets you. Maybe step one in their sales process is they direct you to the pod.
Yeah.
They start your journey there while they're finding a salesperson. Other stores want it in that paint sample section. Those paint sample sections still exist. They're lacking brochures and they're lacking information. About the only thing they have are samples of leather and colors and that sort of thing. But and then from a service perspective, they're located in lounges, lobbies, things like that. Provide that passive or idle content, as we call it, for those customers that are waiting for their car. So it's really everywhere throughout the dealership.
There's a couple of retail, I can't think of the exact the experience, but there's some retail experiences now. Maybe it's the Apple Store or AT&T or whatever it is, when you walk in and the first thing you're doing is putting in your name and your email address and your phone number. And then all of a sudden you're on the wall of here's where you are in the order. And that has very much a kind of organized, controlled, technology forward feel to it, as opposed to the receptionist writing your name on a sticky note and then looking for an available salesperson, and then you're standing around for 10 minutes. This seems like it could fill the gap in time between just standing around waiting, giving you something to do almost while you're waiting.
Yeah, it's truly amazing the void of technology in the automotive space when you compare it to those places such as Apple, AT&T, we reference McDonald's multiple times. You walk into a dealership and the tech in their cars is some of the most advanced tech in the market. They're using some fantastic software behind the scenes to get you to buy the car. But the actual buying process, there's zero tech. There are zero customer tools that are available other than some guy who may or may not be wearing a suit doing his best to convince you to buy this car.
Doing his best. That's funny to me.
And again,
yeah.
And I say doing his best because we talk about the 20% and I joke about the 20%. And I think the advertising and marketing and the mindset of dealers has always been, I need to get more customers here. I need to get more customers here. Yes, you need to drive traffic to your dealership. But what are you doing with that traffic when it arrives? I don't care if it's 2 people, 10 people, or 100 people. If 80%, let's be generous. Let's say it's only 60%. But let's say 50%. 50% of the customers that walk through your door are leaving without buying a car? Like, what are you doing? And your focus is to bring more customers to still be at that same percentage?
Yeah.
Slow down. You have a captive audience. You have the guy that you want, the guy who got off of his couch, drove 30 minutes in his car to your dealership. He's standing in front of you. Sell him a car. And we're able to provide tools that make that process a lot easier.
Where did this idea come from?
That's a lot. How much time do we have, Matt?
Plenty of time. As long as we keep making espresso martinis, I got time.
Let's go. Let's get the espresso machine going. So, as you know, I have another marketing company that has always focused on branding, static point of purchase marketing and advertising. And it really did 2 things. It did provide some traffic driven to the dealership, but most of it was designed and intended to create a customer-centric environment when you actually have the customer there, for the customer and the shopping process. But everything we did was a static format. So we used a lot of print media, and we did, again, I caution on saying that we're the furthest thing from a sign company, but we did a lot of those types of things. But
I used to order
did,
my $500 bonus cash stickers from you every weekend.
Exactly. We don't like to call them stickers, but
sorry.
Give you kind of a pass on that.
Whatever they were called. I can't remember. It's been a while.
We focused on what we referred to as merchandise, right? Things that when a customer was there, engaged and informed them to help them move closer to the sale. So through that company, we were also very heavily focused on problem solving. So it wasn't necessarily a dealer calling and saying, hey, I'm running a $500 off sale. What do you have for me? We would often engage in, hey, here's my problem. Yeah. I have these customers. I need to inform them of this. I just don't know how to do it. So I think that always led us down the path of trying to find and create custom solutions to allow dealers to communicate with their customers. So as we were kind of going through that journey, we eventually derived at, okay, we've got to get out of this static print world and really digitize this. And that was kind of phase 1, where we started developing some technology that allowed us to do that. And then we said, well, wait a minute, we're missing a huge component of this, and that is the interaction between the two. It's like, yeah, we created something cool. We took something that we used to do in a static print form, and we've made it digital, so it looks nicer, it looks fancier, but it does the same thing. And I think the need was quite obvious. We need this level of engagement, and we use that word engagement a lot because every customer that walks through the door is so different. And so to have one piece of information that can't be changed or can't be changed quickly, it sounds like we're really missing an opportunity here to cater to that customer's need. So then we said, okay, well, now we need to take this information that we made digital, and we now need to be able to change it on the spot. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And we are where we are today, which is this incredible piece of technology that we fully developed. We control every interface, every graphical button, every usability, every functionality of it. And we've created something that's pretty unique and pretty special.
Does a dealer buy it or lease it or like?
Yeah, so there's 2 components to this. One is the hardware and the software. We, of course, provide both. They purchase the hardware, and then they subscribe to the software. So the hardware comes equipped with the software, and then their subscription basically covers all of the changes and updates and things like that. So even if a dealer doesn't change anything personally within the pod, we're always changing the information with the most up-to-date model information, specifications, colors, things of that nature.
Can the dealers update their service hours and all that stuff themselves, or do they need to go through somebody? And is it difficult to do? Like, do they need a marketing graphics person, or can a sales manager handle it?
Yeah, so we generally deal with two types of clients. One is a dealership that doesn't have anybody. They don't have any resources at all. And then we also deal with larger dealer groups and corporations that have full marketing and design departments. And so there's a back-end portal that allows a dealer to log in and say, this is what I need done. And they hit submit, and it's done. We have in-house design and coders that handle everything. And then for the other portion that has a design or marketing department, we give them the specifications on how content needs to be displayed. They can take whatever creative they're working on in another medium. They translate that. They upload that through the same portal. It goes through our review process to make sure it doesn't blow up the software, and then it's uploaded instantaneously.
I think that's cool because, a lot of dealers want to be able to update the information themselves and maybe don't have the, the technical ability. So it's for it to be kind of simple or, easy for them to do on the fly is an advantage, because some of those things, hey, we just got an incentive on Ram trucks and it's Friday at 6:00 and the last guy there wants to be able to log in and do it himself. That's nice to be able to do without having to have a tech background or be a graphic designer or stuff like that. So I think that's kind of a key component. Is it difficult for large auto groups to, can they upload? I know I'm stuck on the software part, but can they upload graphics and that kind of stuff, or is it text based or?
Yeah, so they can upload any form of, whether it be a imagery form, video form, et cetera. And it can be any stage of the process. So it can be just conceptually. It can be, hey, I would like a module. That's what we call them, modules. I would like a module for this, and I have this really cool video I would like to incorporate. Upload that. We create everything surrounding that video. Or it could be a completely finalized piece where it's, hey, here it is, to the specifications that we provide. And it's as simple as they've controlled everything and we push it to their pod.
Do they have sound? Do they have audio, the devices?
Yeah, so not only do the pods have sound, each video or audio element has its own sound control. So for example, background idle type functions, you might want at a lower ambient sound, but there are things that you want more pronounced, whether it be a welcome video or a specific message that's maybe from the general manager or the owner about customer satisfaction. You may want that to be at a higher volume because you want to make sure customers hear that. And those can all be changed and customized individually.
Do they, can they be used? Can a dealer take one to I don't know, they're going to a mall to do a car show or something. Can they roll one out there with them and stick it in front of a car and have it there if they're outside of their showroom?
Yeah. Nick, why don't you try to?
Sure. Yeah, they can. So that each one of the devices is equipped with its own Wi-Fi signal, so you can get it anywhere. We do it all through satellite, so you can bring it anywhere. Golf course, if you want to show a new car, I know Range Rover does a lot with polo grounds, stuff like that. They can bring their cars, have the display next to the car, and go through their whole site and system, through that. That's
pretty cool. Can they just plug in, right? Do they need any other access?
All you need to do is plug the pod in and it kicks right on and starts working.
That's kind of cool for if you're sponsoring, if a group is sponsoring a golf tournament or something, you know, they put a car at the, at the first hole and be like, this is the, hole in one car or whatever. And then maybe there's not a salesperson manning it all day. You can slide I saw one in the showroom, or I saw one here in your office that looks like it could go like right in front of the hood, like at the hood of a car.
Yeah.
In a showroom.
Yeah, so that's our new pod stand, which is a pretty cool piece of technology. But yeah, essentially you could do that, and it all works, through satellite, so it's all good to go.
I was hoping they were going to let you talk because 28 minutes in, you don't let the guy talk at all. I thought,
I don't need to
running a
talk.
timer
I don't
over
need
there?
to talk.
no, I can just feel it. Has it been 28 minutes? I can feel I've got an expert. Oh, wow. That's how much, that's how enjoyable the conversation is.
Filibuster.
Wow. Crazy.
I mean, I just wanted to touch back on kind of the customization stuff. That the awesome thing that Dylan does is, each dealer, even if it's multiple Porsche dealerships, each dealership can kind of push the stuff that they want to push. So let's say one Porsche in New Jersey has a ton of Macans that they want to move. Dylan can create custom content that is that, whereas maybe one in Fairfield has a different car that they want to move. So being customization and customizable is an awesome tool.
What is you don't have to, we don't have to talk cost, but these look premium. This is not, the display is not $455 and a $25 a month software subscription. So you guys are talking to dealers that are interested in this. Do you spend a lot of time talking to single point dealers, large groups, corporations, family owned stores? Like what's who's making this investment, and what's the investment like?
So I like that you use the word investment, because that's really how we look at this. This is an investment.
I don't know if you know about this. I recently got promoted to vice president. At my agency. So I've been using big words like investment a lot recently. Yeah, that's a big word.
So when you hear cost, expense, there's generally not a return component on that. But when you hear the word investment, you understand, okay, the money is not going to waste. So to answer your first question, we're talking to individual dealers, dealer groups. We're also talking to manufacturers and big corporations. And yes, it is an investment, but no less than you would invest in almost anything else. We have some dealerships, I won't point any fingers at the person sitting across the room from me, who would spend upwards of $500 to $1,000 a month on balloons for their showroom.
Yeah.
This is far less than that, and is actually impactful in the sales process.
Everyone knows that balloons sell more cars, though. I'm sorry.
I've heard that.
It's a fact.
I've heard that. But no, there's certainly two components to the investment of a pod. One is the upfront hardware, and then the second is the software and subscription component. The great thing about the upfront hardware is it's a capitalized expense. So not that the expense is zero, but it is an asset that is depreciated over time. So dealers don't ignore that expense, but they understand that, okay, this is an investment, this is an asset that will not hit my financial statement the same way that spending $5,000 on a radio might. So it's a let's just say the investment portion is the last objection and almost never heard at all.
Are people buying or investing in one pod, multiple pods, a handful of them? Like what's the...
Yeah, so I think it's interesting.
Are they called pods? What did I say? Did I say it wrong?
No, you said it right.
All right, I wasn't sure.
I
didn't want to call it a screen or something. I want to make sure I got it right. All right.
As long as you don't call it a kiosk, I think we're good.
A kiosk, yeah. Although
It's terrible.
That's like a 8.5 by 11 by 17 sign in like a plastic holder.
Yeah,
it's like at the top of the elevator at the mall. Yeah. Yes, a pod.
So I think if we talk about what dealerships are looking for, I would say that's probably the only objection we've heard thus far is, I don't want one, I need 5 of these things, or
right.
I would love 10 of these things. And that was really the motivation and the drive behind the pod stand, which was the smaller one that you referenced. So what we're finding is a dealer will invest in one main pod, which is our larger version, and then the smaller pod stand that would be in front of each vehicle on the showroom floor. So that could be 8 or 10 locations throughout their showroom.
Can I watch ESPN on the pods? Like the Mets
can't,
are on Sunday Night Baseball or something?
Unless we put a pod in the ESPN office, then.
Right. Fair point. Okay. So you guys have this incredible office space here in Connecticut, and there's only a finite number of dealers around us in Connecticut. And you do have a great experience here. They're all over the place here. When I got here, I got the tour, and you guys showed me everything. But when you're talking to dealers, I assume you're not only talking to dealers in the Danbury, Connecticut DMA. So when you're talking to dealers outside of here, what's the catch? Like I'm here and it's beautiful. All right, yeah, this makes sense. I'm an owner, but I'm in, somebody say Michigan before?
Yeah.
I'm in Dearborn, Michigan, or East Lansing. Like I can't see it, right?
Yeah.
So how are you getting that message across? Besides making the choice to have me here, obviously, and have on this podcast, but how are you?
It was our top priority.
Yeah, sure. How are you conveying that the premium, the feel and look of these things to somebody who can't, necessarily see them?
Yeah. So I think at, first glance or just hearing about a pod in general, I think it's easy to mistake it with, oh, it's a really cool, fancy TV or display, etc. Once you begin a dialogue, and this could be as simple as a phone call about what it actually does, it starts to become a lot more interesting. And then it involves Zoom calls and sometimes in-person meetings. And we haven't shied away from jumping on an airplane and flying across the country.
Sure.
And really showcasing what a pod does. We're going to be at NADA in January, and
nice.
with a bunch of our
in
tech
NOLA,
on
right?
display.
NOLA?
And will you be there?
Possibility I might be there.
All right.
There's a possibility. We have a group meeting with the whole company wide once a year, and we have a pod of people down in the Baton Rouge area.
Okay.
So we're talking about folding our next group meeting around NADA. And I do love myself some like crawfish. So
Yeah.
if I'm gonna get down to New Orleans,
So it makes sense.
I don't want to talk about feeling safe or not in New Orleans, but I do enjoy the food down there. So interesting. Who has to carry the thing in their luggage when you guys travel? Because it's FedEx. Do you really send one out though if you're going
We
to?
do.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So
That's a nice little touch.
Yeah,
I like
so
that.
we have a mini pod, which is still a 50-pound case, but we'll ship a pod out and really showcase what it is and what it does. Look, we believe that what we have is truly something special. There is nothing like it in the marketplace, and we won't shy away from showcasing how great it is.
You're really not going to tell me what AMQ stands for?
So it really doesn't stand. This is not going to make any sort of final edit. Like, it really doesn't stand for anything. So, I mean, it kind of does. It started. So my other marketing company was Auto Merch. So that's where AM came from.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years ago, we started incorporating QR technology into most of our static displays and merchandise and everything. And that led its way to AMQ. And then the pods, I've said it throughout this entire podcast, is we find it a way to bridge the gap or connect salespeople to customers, customers to the vehicles, dealerships to the customers. It really connects all of those pieces, which by default couldn't be further apart.
There's no Q in the word connect though, right?
Yeah, no, I think I've got that figured out.
All right. I do like the name though.
Yeah.
AMQ, it reminds me, is there a Mercedes model that
AMG?
Yeah. So it's got that premium feel to it,
And it also makes a really cool logo. So just from a branding standpoint, it looks cool.
that could be your answer. What does AMQ stand for? It just looks really good on a t-shirt.
It looks really good. Just those sharp angular letters.
Yeah, it looks
perfect.
good on a flat brim hat and a t-shirt and a golf towel or whatever it is. Guys, this has been fantastic.
It's awesome.
It takes a lot to get me to leave the house. I like to be at home in my home office. with my dog and my equipment and my giant monitor, and you were making fun of my phone, my Samsung phone. You know what? I like my Samsung phone. You're not gonna make me feel bad.
I think you might be the only guy.
Yeah, I get made fun of a lot for it.
Get kicked out of a lot of group chats.
Oh my gosh, they get so mad. People text me and go, I could have corrected that typo if you had an iPhone. I was like, why don't you slow down when you're typing me stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Ricky.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for the espresso martini and the fancy water. And thanks to everybody for listening to another episode of Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson.
Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson is brought to you by... Wait, this guy has sponsors? Oh, never mind. This sheet of paper's blank. No sponsors. That makes more sense. For updates, info, future episodes, and more, follow on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and connect on Frackle. You guys made that last one up. That's not even a thing, Frackle. Come on.